Straight ahead, Trump verdict fallout. Senator Ted Cruz condemns the guilty verdict in New York of former President Donald Trump.
I think this is an absolute travesty of justice.
Speaker survives. Dade Phelan wins re-election to his Southeast Texas House seat and believes he'll remain as Speaker in January. But multiple House Republican incumbents lost their primary battles.
This spot's going to be more MAGA.
Contentious Capitol. Attorney General Ken Paxton threatens Republicans in the House who will vote for Phelan as Speaker. Some conservatives in the House have a message for him.
He's bitter. He's playing games. I don't think a lot of people take him seriously.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics, or maybe a jolt of it. Eye on Politics starts right now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics on this June 2nd. Lots to discuss this morning, so let's dive right in. And we begin with the political fallout after a New York City jury found former President Donald Trump guilty on all 34 felony counts for falsifying records to hide payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels. On Friday, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee blasted the guilty verdict.
The public understands, and they understand what's going on. This is a scam. There's a rigged trial.
Trump can still run for president with a conviction. His campaign announced after the verdict Thursday he took in nearly $35 million in fundraising. During an interview with me Thursday, Senator Ted Cruz blasted the ruling.
This is not about law. It's not about criminal justice. This is about politics. This is about trying to destroy Donald Trump. That was the whole point of this, is to run millions of dollars of campaign ads calling Joe Biden's principal opponent, Donald Trump, a convicted felon. This is politics. This is an abuse of the rule of law.
In response to the verdict, Democratic Congressman Mark Vesey says everyone must follow the rule of law.
When they don't follow those rules, then they have to be held accountable, whether it's through civil law or whether it's through our criminal justice system. And yesterday, Trump was held accountable.
Trump will be sentenced July 11th, days before the Republican National Convention. Now to our other big story, this past week's combative primary runoff election. Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan won his bruising battle against Republican David Covey in Southeast Texas by just 366 votes. Phelan will face a challenge from at least two Republicans who say they are also running for Speaker. The Texas House will become more conservative after 8 Republican incumbents in the Texas House from across North Texas lost their seats to challengers backed by Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton. The governor says there are enough votes to pass his school choice plan consisting of taxpayer-funded education savings accounts. Unlike past years, so much of this year's political focus has centered on the Texas House, specifically Republican incumbents and Speaker Phelan himself. After his victory Tuesday night, Phelan said he and his family are happy to move past this.
And I couldn't be more excited about that.
Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan savored his close victory over his challenger, Republican David Covey, after a nasty and the most expensive primary race in the Texas House. Former President Donald Trump, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Attorney General Ken Paxton all backed Covey and rallied to remove Phelan from his Southeast Texas House seat.
What matters is who lives in HD 21. It matters who lives in Jefferson and Orange and Jasper County. Folks outside this district can't vote. I mean, they can endorse, but they can't vote.
He says Southeast Texans voted for him again, in part because he is Speaker of the House.
We have one now, and we've had it for the last 2 sessions, and we're going to have it for another session. And so it's very vital to have one of the the big three, they call it, right here in Southeast Texas.
While Phelan expressed confidence he'll remain Speaker, he is being challenged by 2 other Republicans in the House, Representative Tom Oliverson of Cypress and Shelby Slauson of Stephenville. In North Texas, Katrina Pearson, the former spokeswoman for former President Donald Trump, unseated incumbent Justin Holland in the Republican primary runoff for Texas House District 33 in Rockwall County and parts of Collin County. She was backed by Governor Greg Abbott, the Lieutenant Governor, and Ken Paxton. Holland is one of 8 Republican incumbents in the Texas House from around North Texas who lost not only in the primary runoffs, but in the March 5th primary. Those incumbents also include Dwayne Burns, Frederick Frazier, Lynn Stuckey, and Stephanie Click. In the March 5th primary, incumbents Kronda Timish, Reggie Smith, and Glenn Rogers lost their seats. Along with Pearson, the challengers who won this past week include Helen Kerwin, Carissa Richardson, Andy Hopper, and David Lowe. Mitch Little, Shelley Luther, and Mike Alcott won back in March. All of these seats are in Republican majority districts. Abbott campaigned only for the candidates who backed his school choice plan, taxpayer-funded education savings accounts. The governor said in a statement, quote, "Opponents of school choice can no longer ignore the will of the people. This is a victory for every Texas family across our great state." Paxton campaigned against the Republican incumbents who voted to impeach him this time last year, including Dade Phelan. And some conservatives are sticking with Speaker Phelan. We spoke with Representatives Jeff Leach of Allen and Matt Shaheen of Frisco, both in Collin County.
He's done a tremendous job serving his district, House District 21 in Southeast Texas, for a long time. His voters sent him back to continue that work. And as Speaker of the House, he's done a great job providing what I believe are the two most conservative, or leading the two most conservative legislative sessions in the history of our state.
Even though he's a statewide official, he still runs for re-election in his district. And nobody knows Speaker Phelan better than the people of his district. And he won because of the great wins that we've had during the last 2 sessions that he's been Speaker.
On Tuesday night, the Speaker expressed confidence that he is going to remain as Speaker in January. Do you agree with that? And do you support him? Representative Leach.
I strongly support Speaker Phelan as he seeks re-election to lead our chamber for a 3rd term. And to Speaker Phelan's credit, he's going to spend a lot of time listening to members, spending time with members, and I believe he's going to resoundingly win a majority of the Republican caucus vote and then be re-elected Speaker of the Texas House in January.
Again, I go back to the victories that we've had under Speaker Phelan's stewardship. We've just had some phenomenal conservative sessions underneath him. I have a high level of confidence he will be reelected.
I want to ask you both about what Attorney General Ken Paxton said in a statement released late Tuesday night. He said, quote, "To those considering supporting Dade Phelan as Speaker in 2025, ask your 15 colleagues who lost re-election how they feel about their decision now. You will not return if you vote for Dade Phelan again." Is that a threat?
To be honest with you, Ken Paxton, he's pretty irrelevant in these races. If you look at who he backed, they didn't do very well. In fact, if anything, his endorsement probably hurt candidates out there. He's bitter. He's playing games. I don't think a lot of people take him seriously.
I don't regret voting to impeach General Paxton, and I won't regret voting for Speaker Phelan when he runs for re-election to Speaker of the Texas House. I'm not losing any sleep over General Paxton, what he says and how he threatens us. General Paxton can spend all the time he wants and all the tweets he wants and all the energy he wants threatening Republican House members. But my focus is on, and I would encourage his focus to be on, helping us beat Democrats up and down the ballot in November. He's irrelevant to me. I'm focused on winning in November.
There were a number of House Republican incumbents from our area, from North Texas, who lost. Is the House going to be more conservative? Some even said more MAGA than we've seen before.
I think the House is probably going to be a little bit more conservative, but each of these races, they're their own animal, if you will. But if you look across all the primary elections, whether they were decided in March or this runoff, I mean, it's not even close. By far, really, the issue at hand was school choice, and it was Governor Abbott.
We lost some really, really good House members that, frankly, were just lied about and way outspent in their own districts. They just faced an onslaught of lies and deception and couldn't overcome that. I will tell you that there are some Texas House members, a handful of Texas House members out there that are, frankly, deceiving their voters. They're deceiving themselves. They're certainly deceiving Republican primary voters into what has actually transpired over the last 2 sessions. We have delivered the most conservative legislative sessions in the history of the state of Texas, certainly in modern history.
Other conservatives in the House say they won't support Phelan and offer a competing vision for the House. We spoke with Brian Harrison of Ellis County and Nate Schatzline of Fort Worth.
I don't want to lose sight of the big takeaway from this primary season starting in March and ending a couple nights ago, and that is the unprecedented, historic success of the grassroots activists crushing the liberal establishment uniparty that has controlled the Texas House for far too long. And yes, Dade Phelan survived his race to be reelected, but he should be absolutely humiliated and embarrassed with what he had to do to save his seat. He had to spend over $13 million to eke out an election by 300 votes, and he needed Democrats to carry him across the finish line.
You have to understand that as we're looking at the history of who Dade Phelan is, he has built a career off of empowering Democrats. He's built a career off of getting social Marxist Democrats in the Texas House chairmanships to oversee important committees that have killed conservative legislation over the past couple of sessions.
Where do you see this going? Do you think Phelan is going to remain as Speaker?
One of the things that we have to make sure of is that this next speaker is chosen by our Republican majority caucus. And in that Republican majority caucus, he has to get 2/3 of us to give our yes. Now, I've committed, I know Representative Harrison is committed, and many others as well, that we won't vote for Dade Phelan no matter what.
There are going to be a lot of speaker candidates announced. There's going to be speaker candidates come and go. 7 months is an absolute eternity in politics, Jack, as you know very well. But who the speaker ends up being is less important to me than what I think is of primal focus for us, and that is reforming the Texas House. Under Dade Phelan and liberal Republican speakers before him, the Texas House has become a corrupt den of liberal dysfunction where Democrats are empowered and so-called Republicans collude with them to destroy liberty.
I want to ask you about the statement that Attorney General Ken Paxton made Tuesday night. It got a lot of attention. How do you think that went over? And if it were the other way around and Phelan made that threat to House members, what would you think?
If Phelan were to make that threat to House members, I think he would be blowing some smoke. I don't think at the end of the day, Dade Phelan has any type of sway or pull like our Attorney General has across the state of Texas. We've got a more conservative Texas House coming in. It's going to look a lot different no matter who the speaker is. We are going to fight for those GOP priorities, and the lines are going to be drawn. So I completely agree with Attorney General Ken Paxton. This is going to be a war, and this next session is going to be the same result if we do not go in and fight for our GOP priorities.
I was actually with Attorney General Ken Paxton that night when he put out that statement, and I hope that the message that was received to my Republican colleagues in the Texas House is that this last primary season should be a wake-up call for you if you continue to collude with the Democrats to betray the Republican voters of the state of Texas who sent you there.
Get your popcorn ready for January. Coming up a little later, how elected leaders responded to the recent deadly and devastating tornadoes and storms. But next, a look at who won the open seats for Congress and the legislature, and more analysis on how next year is shaping up at the Texas Capitol. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Eye on Politics on this busy Sunday morning. We now know who may fill the open seats in Congress and the Texas legislature. State Representative Craig Goldman of Fort Worth celebrated a big win over businessman John O'Shea in the Republican primary runoff for the 12th Congressional District in Tarrant and Parker counties. Goldman will face Democrat Trey Hunt in November. The current longtime Congresswoman, Republican Kay Granger, is retiring at the end of her term at the end of the year. Goldman left his State House District 97 seat, and John McQueenie defeated Cheryl Bean in a very close race in the Republican runoff. McQueenie will face Democrat Carlos Walker in November. And for the open Texas Senate District 30 seat, former Denton County GOP Chair Brent Hagenbu beat attorney and conservative activist Jace Yarbrough in the Republican runoff. A lawsuit accusing Hagenbu lives outside the district remains in process before a Denton County judge. Hagenbu faces Democrat Dale Fry in November. The seats are all in Republican majority districts. As I said earlier, all eyes in the political world so far this year have been glued to the Texas House. Former Democratic State Representative Lorraine Birabil of Dallas and former conservative TEA Commissioner and Railroad Commissioner Michael Williams says the House will now be more MAGA.
I think the first thing that this election really signals is that, one, in order for the speaker to stay in, I think, one, I don't think it's likely. I agree with you that it's not likely. But two, if he does stay, he's pretty much going to have to sell his soul to the MAGA supporters to hold that position.
It's too late for him to endear himself with the MAGA Republicans. He's cut, the swath that he's going to have, and he's got his place. So what he'll have to do is cut a deal with Dems and with some very courageous Republicans who will say, come after me if you want to, I'll survive.
And how many are those left?
We'll find out. We'll find out.
And let's talk a little bit about the fact that the House is going to become more conservative, because at least here in North Texas alone, 8 GOP Republican incumbents lost. Now, how is this all going to equate to the direction going forward in the House? And then for you, Lorraine, how are Democrats going to try to block? It's going to become more difficult, isn't it?
Going down that road, I think Democrats are very clear-eyed about the situation that we face in Austin, right? And just more globally what's going to happen in some of these other races statewide that when we think about coming up in November. And I think that sending this class, this new group that's going to be coming into the House, I think it's more of members being signaled that you can't vote your districts. You can't vote your community. You're going to have to get in the MAGA line and stay in the MAGA line if you want to keep your seat.
As an old school conservative, this body is not going to be not more conservative. This body's going to be more MAGA. I would agree with Lorraine. It's going to be more MAGA. And that means, to echo the comment that you made, that means that they're going to have to learn how to govern. What are the issues that moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas talk about around the kitchen table? What are the real problems that real people have that they need the ledge to solve? That's going to be a real governing challenge for this new body that's coming in Austin. Lorraine, when we talk about voting their districts, the districts are MAGA. That's how they got there.
The governor announced just the other day that he announced actually Tuesday night, just hours after all the results came out, that school choice is going to pass in the Texas House for the first time ever. It seems like the votes are there.
To me, the headline is Abbott won, and he won big. He won in March when he got 5 new House members, and he won on the runoff for this past Tuesday when he added more. School choice will pass in this upcoming Texas legislative session. It's taken long enough. I mean,
decades.
I gave my first speech in favor of school choice in 1989. I wrote my first commentary in 1990. It's going to take us this long to pass the legislation, but it will pass this time.
Coming up next, how elected leaders responded to the recent deadly and devastating tornadoes and storms in North Texas. Eye on Politics will be back in a moment, but first, more details about the legal trouble surrounding a South Texas congressman. Here's Sarah Jenkins with this week's brief.
The House Ethics Committee is opening an investigation into South Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar after his indictment earlier this month on allegations of bribery, money laundering, and working on behalf of a foreign government. According to the indictment, Cuellar promised to influence U.S. foreign policy in favor of Azerbaijan and a bank in Mexico in exchange for about $600,000 in bribes between 2014 and 2021. Among the things Cuellar is accused of agreeing to, lobbying legislation that would benefit Azerbaijan and making a speech in favor of the country on the House floor. In a statement, Cuellar said he respects the committee's word and that he is innocent of these allegations. Cuellar and his wife are both facing charges and could spend decades in prison if found guilty.
Now to an update on the most recent legal fight against the state's near-abortion ban. On Friday, the Texas Supreme Court unanimously overturned a lower court's ruling saying the medical exceptions under state law were adequate. 20 women and 2 doctors filed suit against the state, claiming the law kept them from receiving necessary medical care. The deadly tornado and storms proved to be one of this week's top stories. 7 people were killed late Saturday night by an EF2 tornado in Valley View in Cook County. In all, there were 5 tornadoes in North Texas last weekend, including an EF3 that caused devastating property damage near Salina and Collin County. On Monday, 2 days after the storm, some of the storm victims in that area told Congressman Keith Self they hadn't seen an insurance adjuster just yet, and he offered to call their insurance companies.
They need to know what their adjusters are going to, what they're going to do with their claims. So this is an emergency. This is an emergency situation that we need to be reacting to.
And before we go, we've got to congratulate the Dallas Mavericks. For the third time, they're heading to the NBA championship, where they will face the Boston Celtics. They won the Western Conference Finals, and Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson posted a challenge to Boston's mayor on X. Quote, "My Dallas Mavs have already won me some chocolate. What would you like to give me when they beat the Celtics?" Go Mavs, and of course, let's go Stars as they battle the Edmonton Oilers. And don't forget, all of our interviews, our full interviews, are on our website, cbsnewstexas.com. Go to the Eye on Politics section. That's all for Eye on Politics for this Sunday. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next week. Have a great rest of your weekend.